but moving away from that, and in the realm of art, I want to talk to you guys about a topic that we touched on previously, I think last week or maybe the week before that. But I want to hear you guys' like thoughts about this. And this is AI in film and art. Specifically, because of what's going on. I think I mentioned this before that Playboi Carti is getting set up to release his new album. And Jack, I know that you nodded before because he has like this like Ion Music thing that keeps popping up places. And so because of that, like a big rumor is that there's like a lot of AI being used in this album. Now,
Mm.
um, nobody can confirm or deny what's going on. Other than that, famously, notoriously, infamously terrible guy Kanye West has
Yeah.
been coming out with music, right? So because he's put out like those Vultures albums with Ty Dolla Sign. And I know that we talked about Vultures one because I listened to that terrible album. Don't recommend it. And I haven't
Awful.
bothered to listen to Vultures two. I don't care. I don't care about whatever the hell Kanye is doing. But a thing with Kanye, and the reason why I'm bringing this stuff up is that he has been using a lot of AI in his music. And he's come out and he's basically compared AI to he's been saying that people are demonizing him for using AI. And he's compared it to basically like when he was using autotune back in the day. And he's been trying to say
Yeah.
like, oh, AI is great and I'm gonna be in the forefront of it. But then there's clips of him using AI in which basically he just says to the AI, like, hey, make this person's vocals sound like this other artist, right? And so then the conversation becomes like, what right do these artists, like, what right does Kanye West have to record a verse of himself and then tell the AI to make it sound like Young Thug or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Especially because they're using these open AI systems illegally, right? Because they're feeding these AIs like people's music illegally, right? Because you're not, you can't just like take Young Thug's discography, give it to an AI, and then be like assimilate that sound and then replicate it without some kind of like authorized permission or something like that. So that's been going on. That's been like a big topic of conversation. And a lot of his songs that have come out recently for like some kind of upcoming album that he has, people keep debating online. Is it AI or not? So there's been this big kind of like cloud hanging over music, especially hip hop. Again, because of Kanye, and again, because of what, this new Playboi Carti album may or may not be. And then fans' inability to discern whether it's AI or not. And then on top of that, we have had films that have been using AI lately. I know that movie Late Night with the Devil had like sequences that were literally
Mm.
AI generated. That was a big topic of discussion that caused people to just basically negatively like bomb that movie's like
Hmm.
Letterboxd and IMDb with just negative reviews because of the AI. Also because the filmmakers were not forthcoming with the AI, people had to find that shit out.
Hmm.
And a topic of conversation about the movie The Brutalist, which we haven't seen yet, because apparently there is some level of AI used in that film, specifically though, for accent speech correction. Adrian Brody came out and he said that there's a scene in the movie in which basically when he originally performed it, his accent that he's supposed to have, he did not basically pull it off. And they used AI and audio corrected his dialogue, and it was like apparently like a scene or like
Mm.
a moment. That's been a big topic of discussion with that movie. Obviously, nominated for like 10 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director. Um, and this whole thing has caused so much conversation that James Cameron has basically weighed in, and he said, and this is kind of where I'm ending this and opening it up to you guys. He said that the next Avatar movie that's coming out is going to have at the beginning and at the end of the movie basically like a piece of text that says no AI was used in the making of this picture. So
Oh yeah.
having provided you guys with all that information, can you give me your takes? And Jake, I guess I'll throw it to you right away. Um, how do you feel about this stuff? Like, how do you feel about AI? Do you think that it is kind of like an unethical or like or in terms of like the artistic integrity of this shit, right? Where do you come down on this?
Yeah. I mean, basically, like I definitely think AI is a massively useful tool.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a controversial statement, and I do think that things are probably about to change like quite a bit in the next like 5 to 10 years.
Hmm.
And I will say that like it's so funny, man, like how history kind of repeats itself because forever, right? Like young people have been sort of making fun of, their grandparents or whatever and being like, oh, that old person doesn't even know how to work a fucking iPhone, or like, oh, I need help with Facebook. Does anyone know how to work the Facebook?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just, it's been a joke for like forever that old people don't know how to use technology. It's so funny though, because history is repeating itself with our generation where, I mean, ChatGPT has been around for like, two at least 2 years. I've been using it for almost 2 years now,
Hmm.
and, like, so often, though, I come across people who, like, I mean, some people are gonna use it more than others for, practical purposes, but I'll come across people who, like, just never utilize it ever and, like, don't even have it on their phone or, like, have never used it, who are, like, our age, and I'm like, "Man, I'm telling you, eh, to those people, like, like you are going to be like the old people who don't know how to work a cell phone." Like, you're
Hmm.
gonna be like those old people who, like, when, the new iOS update comes up, they're like, "What's going on here? Why don't" "Oh, ran out of storage. Well, how do I free up more storage? Oh, well, you gotta put the photos on the cloud. What's the cloud? How do I do that?
Yeah.
Ugh,"
Yeah.
and you're just kinda
Yep.
like, "Ugh." And that is going to be you if you don't kinda, get on the bandwagon and, start making use of it because, like, the way we used to say, like, "Man," like, you know, thank God for Google. I mean,
Hmm.
what were things like before you had to go to the library? Now it's gonna be like, oh, before you had to go to Google, now you can use ChatGPT.
Hmm.
It's like and like, you can use it like AI is so much more useful for like bouncing ideas. It responds to you like, really like, generating like real solutions where it's no longer an issue, because like before it was like, oh, I type something into Google and I can't find the answer. The internet can't answer a fucking question, especially when these blogs hit the scene. It's just like endless blog articles. I can't get a straight answer to a fucking question a lot of the time. Now with ChatGPT, to an extent, that problem has gone away. Not entirely because you still have to be careful. It still does need improvements.
Hmm.
Like I have caught it making shit up quite, more than a few times. So you do have to fact check Chat GPT. But what I'll say about like artistry is I'm pretty opposed to outright using AI to make art.
Hmm.
I'm not opposed to using it as like a tool in terms of any more than I'm opposed to using auto tune as a tool to make your voice sound different,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
an echo or any kind of filter, or an amp to make an electric guitar, whatever. um I guess for me and this is just my opinion, I take issue with it when it's like, could you have done this without AI? And the
Hmm.
answer is no,
Hmm.
right? So, like, if you're using AI to, you know, I don't know, like in a movie, right? Like, if
Hmm.
you're asking AI, like, hey, what are some like aspects, like if I'm filming a World War II movie and you ask ChatGPT, hey, what are some ways that I can add to the scene in terms of like authentic, World War II era imagery, and it gives you like a top 10 list. Like, could you have done that without AI? Yes. Right? But
Hmm.
you're just using it as a tool. That's much different than being like, hey, Chat GPT, generate
Right.
a complete World War II era, you know, scene for me.
Right. And I think.
So that's where I stand.
Mhm.
I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but where I stand is like, if you couldn't make it without AI, then I'm not really interested in it because at that point, it's not even really yours, it's the
Hmm.
AI's.
Hmm.
And art is human expression,
Right.
and AI is not human. AI is something else.
Right.
Um, sure, it's the product of human intelligence, but yeah, I'm just not really interested. So when you tell me that Kanye, you know, had an AI replicate Young Thug's voice, again, if I pose the question, could he have done that without the AI?
By getting Young
No.
Thug.
Right. He would have
Exactly.
had to get Young Thug in there. So
Yeah.
so the answer is no, he couldn't have done it without AI unless he got the actual person in there, at which
Hmm.
point he wouldn't need it. So the question, really the answer is still no. He couldn't have done if we don't have Young Thug in the room,
Hmm.
he couldn't have done it without AI.
Hmm.
Yeah, and to that
That's
point,
where I'm
like,
not interested in it.
yeah, yeah, and to that point exactly, it's like, what happens when you start doing that and that becomes popularized? And then we've done the make it sound like Young Thug, make it sound like Future, make it sound
Right.
like Travis Scott a million times. And then it's like there's nobody even experimenting and prominent enough to really like be like pushing the creativity within that space. Like a lot of those artists have made like immense in hip hop itself impacts on what the sound itself sounds like. And
Mhm.
if we're doing is imitating a sound, we're not really like expanding on it.
Right. It becomes
And I
like
think
a.
that
It just becomes a machine that eats things, but then we don't have an input to create new things, right?
yeah, and that was the first thing that I thought when you brought that up about Playboy Carti using AI
Hmm.
on the new album was that news that not new but like newer in the last 6 months song Timeless with the weekend.
Hmm.
Like it sounds like he could have been like throw Travis Scott's vocal settings on me.
Hmm.
Like I mean, it could have been that because in that song he does sound Travis Scotty to
Hmm.
me, and I've kind of seen like the last couple like singles or features he's been on being kind of like emulating other people's sounds.
Right. And then the question.
So
Yeah, he sounds like Future on that one single that he came out with in the fall, Playboi Carti.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
And
think. I
now
was trying to
now
think
I'm
of what
like,
that one was. Do you remember the name of that single?
I think it's something Red. I don't
All
remember,
Red.
but all I think it's All Red. He sounds exactly like Future. I thought it was Future, and now I'm like, well, fuck. Did he use a Future filter or something like
Right. And
an
then
AI
even
thing?
beyond a filter, right? Like even beyond a filter, a lot of the things that, let's say, for instance, Kanye is being accused of is not even rapping it. Like basically just having the AI come up with the lyrics, you know, just basically having like the AI training the AI on himself, like here's my discography, and then be like write me a beat, like write me like lyrics for this beat, listen to the beat, and then basically just saying and rap it for me. So then at that point, like you get where I'm going with this, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
Kanye,
Mhm,
for instance,
yeah.
is being accused of not even fucking being the fucking person that's actually like even rapping his lyrics or his verses anymore. And so then the question is like, what is the value of that, right? And
It
then
sucks, man.
again the precedent, right? Because Kanye is interesting because he's not in the same position that he once was, meaning that he's a known piece of shit, and nobody wants to do anything with him, except for the people that are just like vehemently like blind and his fans still. Obviously I was a fan of his at some point in time and I'm not that anymore. Um, because the guy is just such a huge fucking piece of shit, and so hateful. But then, then we have somebody like Playboi Carti, right? And then the question becomes like, what is the value intrinsically as a human being, especially when we're looking at art and music, right? Of listening to some shit that there is no even
Yeah.
no human input into that. It's just a computer made from beginning to end of that sausage. But then what I want to kind of put into you guys' minds too is when you don't even know, right? You don't
Mhm.
even know. You don't know, and
Yeah,
and
I've thought
that's
of that before
go
too. It's
ahead.
like if I don't know this was made by an AI, then I guess who cares really,
Yeah.
you know? but go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't know if
No,
that's what you were getting at.
no, that's kind of what I was getting at. But then that is also why I brought into this conversation James Cameron, right? Because it
Mhm.
seems to me like James Cameron is basically trying to set a precedent. Basically like every film since I think people since some animals were harmed in movies and the EPA had to like step in or something. Um, in every film, at the end of the film, it says no animals were harmed in the process of making this picture, right? And so James Cameron, like I said to you, this is making news because he said in the next Avatar movie it will say that there was no AI, used in the making of this picture. So it seems like he is, for some reason, James Cameron seems to be the right now the face of saving art, right, filmmaking, because he seems to be the person, and he obviously has the power to do that. That is going to kind of set a precedent in film, where basically if people are not going to adopt that, or if you see a movie and it doesn't say that, then it's probably like, oh, I was used to make this movie,
Yeah.
you know. So I want to hear of you like what you feel about that. Jack, I'm going to throw
I
the ball
mean,
at you.
I think it's an extremely like intelligent thing to do,
Hmm.
especially in this time, to really make it clear and to set a precedent. Because I mean, even in just doing one movie like that, like like you said, like every movie you're going to look at, if somebody doesn't throw it on there, it was likely used, and
Hmm.
that says a lot more to the credit of the movies that don't use AI to its techniques. So I think it's probably a really good thing for trying to preserve the art and the filmmaking
Hmm.
in itself. I mean, I think that I personally don't think that there's a problem with leveraging AI in some situations.
Hmm.
And sometimes there's things in different genres that aren't even possible, like if there's fictional types of um creatures or life that's especially in like a avatar type scenario like that. I mean, I'm even surprised that there's not an allure to use AI in a more of a way to create something that actually isn't there, but it makes it so much more impressive to really execute that within the realm of just the film that making techniques that are more classical.
Hmm.
um uh, do you have any thoughts on it, Jake?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I agree, man. Like, it's like I would rather continue to see
Hmm.
imperfection in art
Hmm.
than to go down this road of just AI giving us like perfection and everything. Like that's part of what makes art charming is that like you can see sometimes you can see the like the glue kind of the seams, the cracks, as it were, like, oh, in the fucking you know old monster movie, The Giant Behemoth, where its joints are, you can see some of the glue on the stop motion model. Oh, you could see a boom mic in the shot there. Like, oh, you can kind of like I don't know, man, or like oh, Adrian Brody didn't quite nail that accent there. Like I I would rather just continue to have some imperfections and then work together as people to just kind of keep on improving those and I don't know, just keep
Right.
putting our heads together creatively and
Yeah.
coming up with solutions
Well,
and
because
just working at it, man. Like it's just not, I don't know, man. It's just not fun when like a robot is just fixing everything. Like again, AI is a great research tool. Like again, if I were a musician, it's like to me, it's like if I make a beat for a hip hop song, and then I throw it at AI and I say, "Hey, chat, how can I improve this beat?" And it gives you like a list of things. Like to me, that's cool because
hmm
that's like, like if the AI says to you, maybe add a more hookier kind of synth in there. Maybe add like, maybe turn up the distortion on the 808s, like, whatever it might be. That's cool. That's a really
Yeah.
tool that can kind of
And
help
I
you
would
make
I would encourage anybody in the audience to take a second to load up ChatGPT or whatever AI you prefer have used, and kind
Mm,
of guide it through a creative exercise to really see like what it's capable of.
yeah.
Recently, I had like last night. I was with Jake, and my dog Oxford is known
Yeah.
for having bad breath, and I his breath is rank, and I loaded up Chat GPT and I was like, make a parody of Back in Black by ACDC called Back in Breath about my dog Oxford's
Mhm,
bad breath.
mhm.
Yeah.
And the absolute like lyricism that it came up with was insane. I mean, it was so impressive. So I would definitely encourage anybody listening to use AI for a creative experimentation just to kind of see where it's at.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to add to that, but to kind of bring us back a little bit back around to something that you said, Jake, which is regarding right, like when like those kind of imperfections in film, right? Specifically, something I wanted to mention, like just to add to that list that you had, a movie like Punch Drunk Love, you know, because in Punch Drunk Love, famously, there's a scene in that movie when Barry's kind of having that escort phone call, the first one, where the camera kind of like there's a moment where the camera almost like bumps, it goes like pop, like it like bumps and then
Yeah.
comes back, and then there's suddenly like a flare in there, you know, and then that's a moment that I'm always like I always remember because that struck me so much when I watched the film. I was like, what in the fuck was that moment, you know? And then you come to
Yeah.
find out it was like, oh, the camera operator like bumped the camera, and then Paul just saw that. Paul Thomas Anderson, the director, saw that, and he was like, "That actually makes the scene better," you know. And it's like, but those are the things that normally you would be like, "Oh, that's an imperfection in that movie," right? But that's what the human experience is, right? Because unless all of us become robots, or all of us just put chips in our brains, like we're living the human experience, which is just like this flawed, like experience. And I agree with a lot of what you guys have said in terms of like the utility of it all, right? And so I guess it's really just about like I guess like the integrity of it all, and having like an understanding of when maybe you lose the authorial element of it, right? Because it's like, at what point do you have to then give ChatGPT a co-writing credit for your story, kind of thing,
Right.
right? So then it's just like it's. I think it's really just about like you said, it's really just about having like a healthy way of utilizing it as a tool that doesn't then kind of encroach itself to such an extent where then it becomes like like, oh, this thing kind of did this with me, like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because then it's just lame, man,
yeah.
letting these robots in on everything, but I don't know, man, it's interesting. It's kind of interesting how quickly people are hopping on this. I honestly thought, like, a couple years ago, I was like, "Oh, like, there's gonna be a long period of artists being super resistant to this," but no, that's not what happened. People jumped on it immediately, at least some
Mhm.
people. Whether it's the brutalist example, the Late Night with the Devil, Playboi Carti, allegedly, Kanye. Like, there's people that are just hopping right on this shit, man. And I hope there's more. My hope would be that there's more artists like James Cameron who are wise enough to kind of be like, no, let's keep let's uh, keep showing off like our human ingenuity. Let's be
Mhm.
proud of like human achievements, human ingenuity, like and human creativity.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and it's gonna get the more advanced this stuff gets, and the more people start using it, like art's gonna get really diluted, man. There's just gonna be
Hmm.
too many products. Like
Hmm.
if you can just get an AI to just make a movie or make a book or make a video game, it's like in like fractions of seconds. It's just like because it's going to be exponential. Then I don't know, it's gonna almost become like art will become less of a commodity and more like just the words we speak almost, where like I don't know, it's like conversation. If you look at the world, conversation is like unlimited, right? Like you're never going to ever 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 hear every single conversation or be a part of every single conversation. You're only going to be able to listen in on and be a part of a fraction of all the conversations that happen. And I feel like if and when AI gets advanced enough to produce art in a blink, art is going to become like that, where it's like you're never ever going to be able to you know really experience like any significant fraction of like the art that exists, you
Yeah.
know, which it's kind of already like that. There's so much media, like no one's ever really gonna, but at least now you can kind of be like pretty well read on most forms of media. Um, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm rambling, but yeah.
No, I think that that's like something where it's already like media as a whole, like social media, Spotify, like your TikTok knows, like if you're on TikTok, what things that you like puts you in a box. Like it knows what you
Yeah.
like and it's going to maximize like your time spending on that platform based on what it knows you like. Same thing for Instagram, for Facebook, for whatever. All these companies are out to try to YouTube engage as much time as they possibly can from us. And once AI popularizes that, I think that could really have an effect on isolating people from each other and being able to experience like more of a holistic view when it's like everything that you're seeing and experiencing is personalized and pigeonholed into what they think you will like and what they think they will be able to extract the most value out of you from, instead of you kind of experiencing and being able to branch out into different forms of things. um
Yeah, yeah, and
I
then
think that could be a real issue.
something, I guess, something, the way that I want to cap off
Yeah.
this conversation about AI, and this is going to be a recurring topic because this conversation is going to keep evolving, obviously. But what does it mean for you guys? Like Jack, for instance, like if the new Playboi Carti song album comes out, and then we know like for a fact that it's just AI generated, are you going to listen to that album? That's the question.
I think at this point, I would listen to it to see what it's capable of.
Yeah,
But I think
from
as
like
a
a curiosity
consumer,
standpoint, I guess.
yeah, from a curiosity
Curiosity. Yeah.
standpoint, I don't think I would value it as much as an album that didn't have it. But I think that it begs the question, and kind of going into an era where AI is going to be utilized more and more. As a consumer, we're going to have to be really careful and informed about like what kind of things we're interacting with and if that's a factor. Like we're going to have to take that into consideration when we're consuming media. Like, is AI a factor in this? And be intentional with how we reflect that in its value.
Right, and
um
and I think that's why I am very happy and I'm championing like James Cameron because he's at least in film. He's starting that like conversation, and he's gonna set that tone for the rest of time, I guess. Whereas I guess in music nobody's really step up to be like, hey, you know, I'm gonna put a flag here, and I feel like James Cameron, it has to be somebody like big, it can't just be like Joe Schmo and his two violinists, it has to
yeah,
be like,
no
like a
doubt.
Mm,
Taylor Swift or something to be like, hey, I'm gonna put this on the
yes.
cover of my album, like, this is gonna, I'm not fucking around with this. um
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the one other point that I wanted to make was just like we're gonna have to, from a consumer standpoint, again, like be very informed and intentional about like how much we interact with AI. Like, is there going to be a point in technological advancement where we have to get in and like buy into the AI and really leverage it, or we're going to miss the wave and be left behind. Like we really have to be on top of how informed we are about kind of these developments, and make sure that in this day and age we make the right choices, so we're not either left behind and outdated, or just like too far on the forefront of it where we lose some of our like humanity as far as like interfacing with AI.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Guys,
One
go
thing.
ahead.
One thing I want to jump in and say too, like, is I think what really will hopefully hammer my point home too that I was making about like art being a product of a human mind and a human creativity, and it's more than that. It's like communication. Like, people out there know I'm a big Stephen King fan, and he has an autobiographical. Uh, he has a memoir basically called On Writing. It's both a memoir and a kind of like writer's guidebook. Like he offers like it's like a good half of it is his autobiography, and the other half is like practical writing advice from the macro level all the way down to like sentence structure and adverbs and similes and metaphors and things like that. And one thing that he says in one of the early chapters is that writing, and you could really expand this to just art in general, is telepathy. And he talks about like how, and he basically says like, I wish I had the book in front of me right now. It's over on my shelf, but I'll just kind of paraphrase here. He basically says like, something to the effect of, here, I'll show you, like, picture a chair, right? Okay, now the chair is purple, and it has cushions on it and there's a door behind it. And he says, you see that? He's like, basically, I just communicated with you, without actually being there with you. It's telepathy. And that's what art is, it is telepathy. It is communicating with people who, when you're not even there, right? And I thought that was fascinating, and with AI, we lose that that's lost, I think. That's lost. Because then it's no longer like when I'm listening to, an album and it was generated by AI, it's no longer like, "Oh, this is what he or she is saying in this song, and
Right.
this is
It's
how he or she wants me to feel." It's
exactly,
like, no, it's just
exactly.
what the fucking AI
Especially,
generated, you
especially
know?
because like at least like I don't know if this is any different for you guys or if this is just kind of the universal experience, which I think it more for the most part it is that when I interact with media, right? Like when I listen to, like a Kid Cudi song, or when I watch,
Mm,
like a fucking Richard Linklater movie, part of the experience, right, for me is feeling, understood, right? Just being like,
yeah,
oh, in this universe, there's an artist, there's a filmmaker, right? That is going through this world's existence in a way that resonates with me and I feel less
yeah,
alone, right? Like that's such a big thing with art, right? And with these things that it's just like it makes you feel like you're not alone in the world. And then
yes.
if it's just like, oh, a computer, then you just go like, oh fuck, like we're doomed, not to be, not to kind of blow things out of proportion, but yeah.
I agree with you, dude. Yeah, that was a great way to, yeah, that was well put.
But unless, do you guys have any final thoughts on this? If not, I'll transition.
Nah, that's it for me.
Okay.
Me too. I think you
Okay.
summed it up well.
So in terms of art that connects with people,